Hey, this is Chris from Brewmont.net and BrewmontTX on Twitter, Beaumont's beer review website, and we're starting to do some content for homebrewing because everybody likes homebrewing. I figured I'd start off with a real basic one, a yeast starter. What do you need to make a really, really good beer, but a really strong, healthy yeast colony to convert all that sugar into alcohol? What you're aiming to go with is a gravity of 1.03 to 1.04. With us, that's going to mean about a liter of water and 3 ounces of dry malt extract. So we're gonna give that a boil for 10 minutes, cool it down to room temp so that the yeast won't get shocked or anything, and you'll have a immediate startup. But let's get on with it. Start off with 3 ounces of dry malt extract. I find it's a lot easier to deal with than the liquid stuff, especially when you're using so little of it. But be careful, once the stuff gets wet, it's a pain to clean up. You can see the outside of my bag has got some dried stuff on it, and it's just really awful, so be careful. So if you don't have a postal scale like I use, you can just do a half cup of DME. It's about the same, and really we're just looking for a ballpark anyway. So while the water is relatively cool, you want to go ahead and add it in. It's easier to work the clumps out and stuff. If you've ever worked with DME, you know what I'm talking about. And it'll really take a couple of minutes of just like decent stirring before this stuff gets completely mixed in. And you want to be pretty thorough about it. You don't want any sediment ending up in your yeast starter. Not necessarily that the yeast won't take care of it, but you're going to be watching the thing, and you'll wonder what the hell it is. If you look over here, this is what we're going to finish off with. I actually bought this Erlenmeyer flask. You don't actually have to use a flask or a stir plate, really. It really does help immensely. I'm using a homemade stir plate and a 2-liter flask, making a 1-liter starter in it, so you've got plenty of space for any krausen that happens. But by no means do you need to actually purchase anything for this. You can use an old 2-liter soda bottle or a growler. The deal is that you have to swish it around every time you walk by it. The stir plate introduces more oxygen into the solution and lets CO2 out. The oxygen is just a necessary thing for yeast production. I'm sure all you guys know that. But like I said, by no means do you need the specialized equipment. And I also wanted to say another thing. If you do go out and buy one of these Erlenmeyer flasks, especially the Pyrex ones, you can do this boil and chill all in your own vessel. I've got one of these radiant heat cooktops, so I'm uncomfortable with just doing this on that. But if you have a gas range, feel free to put your wort in this, boil it, and then put this in your ice bath. So again, we're looking for about 72 degrees. Forgive me, my digital broke, but we're just using an analog guide. This has been sitting in a star sand solution. And if you actually agitate the wort a bit, you notice that it cools down really, really quickly. But you don't have to do that either. You know, with your beer, you're really trying to cool it down as quickly as possible. I haven't noticed too big of a difference with the yeast starters. I think the big thing is actually taking the extra effort to try to do the yeast starter. So we're going to chill this down. I'm going to go over here, decant all this extra water off of my yeast, and then pour it in. There wouldn't be any need to decant if you guys are just using a smack pack or if you're using the White Labs tubes. But again, one of the best things you can do for a batch of beer is to take your liquid yeast and make a starter for a good, healthy colony. We've just chilled our wort down to about 70 degrees, which is where I want mine. This is near my pitching temperature. By this point in time, if you're using production yeast, the White Labs, or the Y-Yeast smack packs, you will have wanted for your yeast to warm up to room temperature. That way you don't shock the yeast. And I'm about to pour it in through a sterilized funnel into my Erlenmeyer flask. And also, I didn't mention this earlier, you don't need a stopper and an airlock on this because you want the oxygen interchange. So you just take a thing of aluminum foil and stick it in your bucket of star sand or iodophor, whatever you're using. But this is also sterilized. one thing to note is the color of this wort. It's a really, it's a dark color. After a day and a half, really, minimum 18 hours, you're going to end up with a light, creamy, suspended settlement that looks like this yeast in the bottom of my wash jar. But it's really awesome. You can actually watch the solution change color, and you'll see it get more dense as it goes along, and that's when you know it's ready. Most people say to pitch at high krausen. If you've fermented beers before, you know what the krausen is. So once that krausen goes up, you're ready to pitch at any time. If it's going to go for longer than a day or so, you might want to take it off, refrigerate it, let it drop out, and then consider using it at a later date. So I'm adding the sterilized aluminum foil. We turn on the stir plate, and we should see some activity. And as I said before, you don't actually have to have a stir plate. You don't need the Erlenmeyer flask. All you really need is to make a mini beer of a gravity of between 1.03 and 1.04, and a 1 or 2 liter bottle or your favorite growler, and just agitate it every time that you walk by it. There's a great yeast resource called MrMalty.com, and he's done some awesome experiments that actually show the difference in cell count between using a stir plate and just walking by and agitating it. And there's a huge difference between using those two things, but the biggest difference is that even if you agitate it, the Y Yeast and the White Labs packs say that they come with 100 billion cells, which is okay for a beer that's under 1.06. Even if you don't have a stir plate, you're going to end up with around 170 billion cells, which is enough to get a good fermentation going on a medium strength beer. You're not going to lose out by not using the stir plate. But the stir plate is really awesome to have, and we're going to go back sometime this week and actually do a video on how to make your own stir plate. Don't forget, like I always do, to actually pitch your yeast into the thing. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you guys got something out of it. All this information is available on the internet, done better by people other than me. If you guys have any questions, though, feel free to leave them in the comments section. Like I said, we're going to be doing another video on how to DIY your own stir plate with a computer fan and a couple of rare earth magnets, which will be cool. And then stay tuned for more extract and then all grain brewing videos. Again, Brewmont TX on Twitter and brewmont.net.
Yeah.